The sun blazed over Ouagadougou, its golden heat dancing across the crowded streets. Ibrahim Traoré walked briskly through the market square, his shoulders squared with the confidence of a man who had fought his way through hardship. Once a struggling youth, now a respected soldier and people's leader, he carried himself with quiet dignity. To many, Ibrahim was more than a man. He was a symbol of hope. Yet, beneath the hardened exterior, he remained deeply human, with memories and friendships that still clung to his heart. As he passed by the vendors, the cries of merchants and laughter of children mixed into the familiar rhythm of the city. Nothing in the air suggested that this would be the day when Ibrahim's life, and the life of someone dear to him, would be shaken forever. He thought of his upcoming meeting with advisors, of matters of governance and duty. But destiny had other plans. Something on the roadside caught his eye, halting his steps in mid-stride. On the sidewalk, amid the noise and bustle, a figure sat hunched against a wall. His clothes were torn, his hands outstretched, a battered cup trembling between his fingers. People walked by without notice, some sneering, others averting their eyes. But Ibrahim froze. The man's face, though weathered and scarred by suffering, carried a familiarity that pierced Ibrahim's heart. There, sitting in humiliation and despair, was Musa, his childhood friend. The boy who once raced him barefoot through dusty fields, the boy who shared roasted maize with him under starlit skies, was now reduced to begging. And worse still, in Musa's arms lay a baby, swaddled in cloth, its tiny chest rising and falling weakly. Ibrahim's heart clenched. He could scarcely breathe. The sight was not just shocking, it was unbearable. Ibrahim's mind drifted backward in time, carried by the sudden shock of recognition. He remembered the days when he and Musa were inseparable, running through the fields after school, chasing grasshoppers and dreaming of futures brighter than their reality. Musa had been the bold one, always laughing, always lifting Ibrahim's spirits. They had shared bread, secrets, and scars together. Back then, they had promised that nothing in life would ever separate them. But time had betrayed that promise. Life had pulled Ibrahim into the path of discipline, service, and honor, while Musa had slipped silently into the shadows of poverty. The distance between them had grown unnoticed until now, when destiny dragged the truth back into Ibrahim's path. The question that gnawed at Ibrahim's heart was simple but heavy. How could Musa have fallen so far? Ibrahim approached slowly, his footsteps heavy, his chest pounding. Musa, sensing someone near, lifted his tired eyes. For a moment, he did not recognize the man before him. Dust and despair clouded his gaze until recognition sparked like a candle in darkness. His lips trembled, but shame was quicker than joy. He bowed his head, hiding his face as if he wished the earth would swallow him whole. "Musa," Ibrahim whispered, his voice cracking. The sound of his name stirred something deep in Musa. He dared not look up, but the baby stirred, whimpering, its cries rising above the noise of the street. Passers-by glanced briefly, then moved on. But Ibrahim stood rooted, staring at the fragile life bundled in Musa's arms. In that moment, the city faded. Only Musa, the child, and Ibrahim's breaking heart remained. When Musa finally lifted his gaze, Ibrahim saw more than just exhaustion. His friend's eyes carried a storm. Grief, hunger, defeat, and shame rolled into one. It was the look of a man who had been abandoned not just by others, but by hope itself. Ibrahim wanted to speak, to offer comfort, but the words felt too small. No greeting could mend what time and suffering had done. "Ibrahim, it's been years," Musa muttered, his voice hoarse. "And this is how you find me?" His hands clutched the baby protectively, as though the child were the last reason keeping him alive. Ibrahim's throat tightened, but he forced his voice steady. "Brother, it does not matter where I find you. What matters is that I have found you." Musa shook his head, bitter tears glistening in the corners of his eyes. "You were meant to see me strong, not like this, not begging with a child in my arms." The bitterness in his tone was sharp, yet it was not aimed at Ibrahim. It was aimed at life itself. The shame of failure weighed so heavily on him that his shoulders seemed bent beneath an invisible burden. Ibrahim crouched to his level, ignoring the curious stares of strangers passing by. "There is no shame in surviving, Musa. There is only shame in giving up, and I will not let you give up." His words struck deep, but Musa could not meet his eyes. The baby whimpered again, and Musa rocked the child gently. The silence that followed was heavier than words, carrying all the years they had lost. The baby's cry cut through the air once more, fragile yet powerful enough to draw Ibrahim's full attention. He leaned closer, his eyes softening. "Whose child is this?" he asked. Musa hesitated, his jaw tightening as though the question carried a blade. "She is mine," he finally whispered, his voice trembling. "Her name is Awa." Ibrahim's gaze lingered on the little girl. Her cheeks were pale, her breathing uneven, her tiny hands clutched at the cloth wrapped around her. She was the very image of innocence and peril. Something stirred within Ibrahim, not just compassion, but responsibility. Whatever had brought Musa to this point, this child was now part of the story. And Ibrahim knew, without a shadow of doubt, that she deserved more than the streets could ever give. Ibrahim placed a hand on Musa's shoulder. The gesture was steady, grounded, and filled with unspoken promise. "Musa, listen to me. I will not leave you like this. Not you and not her. Whatever it takes, I will stand by you." The words came naturally, almost instinctively, as though they had been waiting for years to be spoken. Musa's lips quivered, torn between disbelief and gratitude. "Ibrahim, I don't deserve your help. I don't deserve anything. I made choices, bad ones, and now look at me." Ibrahim shook his head firmly. "We all fall, Musa. What matters is who helps us rise again, and I will help you." The moment sealed itself in Musa's heart. For the first time in years, a faint spark of hope flickered inside him. Without another word, Ibrahim reached out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Musa took it, his grip weak but clinging to something stronger than pride. Together, they rose from the sidewalk. Passers-by glanced with mild curiosity, but none dared intervene. Ibrahim walked beside Musa, steadying him, while Musa cradled baby Awa close to his chest. They walked through the city's bustling veins, but Ibrahim was no longer aware of the noise or the stares. His heart was set on one thing: finding shelter, food, and a moment of peace for his old friend and the fragile child in his arms. For Musa, every step was both painful and healing. Painful because it reminded him of his failures. Healing because it reminded him he was no longer alone. As they made their way through winding alleys, Ibrahim's thoughts wandered again. He remembered how Musa had once defended him from bullies, how he had shared the little food he had when Ibrahim went hungry, how they had both dreamed of becoming men their families could be proud of. Now, they had twisted their paths so differently, but the bond of brotherhood had not been erased. "I should be the one helping you, not the other way around," Musa muttered bitterly. Ibrahim stopped, turning to face him with firm eyes. "You are helping me, Musa. You are reminding me of who I am. Power, position, respect. They mean nothing if I cannot use them to lift my own brother. Don't ever think you are a burden." Musa lowered his head, silent tears streaking his cheeks as he clutched Awa tightly. For the first time in years, his heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, he could rise again. Ibrahim led Musa through narrow alleys until they reached a modest safe house, a place Ibrahim often used for private moments away from public eyes. The walls were plain, the furniture simple, but it offered what Musa had not felt in years: safety. As they entered, Musa looked around with unease, feeling like a stranger in a world he no longer belonged to. Ibrahim motioned him to sit while he fetched water and food. Musa's hands trembled as he reached for the bread, torn between hunger and pride. The baby's small whimper broke the tension, reminding him that survival was no longer about pride. He tore the bread gently, dipping it in water before pressing small pieces to Awa's lips. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered, "Eat, my little one, eat." That night, after the baby had drifted into uneasy sleep, Ibrahim sat across from Musa, watching him silently. Finally, Musa spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never imagined you would see me like this, Ibrahim. I failed everyone. My wife, she died bringing Awa into this world. I could not protect her. I could not provide." His voice cracked, the weight of grief choking his words. Ibrahim leaned forward, resting his hand firmly on Musa's shoulder. "You did not fail her. Life was cruel. You are still here, and because of you, Awa breathes tonight. That is not failure, that is strength." Musa shook his head, staring at the flickering lamp. "Strength? I am a beggar on the streets. My daughter knows hunger before she knows laughter. Where is the strength in that?" The weight of Musa's pain reminded Ibrahim of a long-forgotten promise. As children, the two had once stood by the river, swearing that no matter where life carried them, they would always lift each other in times of need. The memory struck Ibrahim like a lightning bolt. Perhaps fate had finally brought him back to fulfill that very vow. He smiled faintly, though sorrow clouded his eyes. "Do you remember what we promised by the river, Musa? That no matter what came, we would stand for each other?" Musa's lips trembled, the memory softening his hardened features. "We were only boys then, boys full of dreams we could not keep." Ibrahim shook his head. "Dreams don't die, Musa. They wait, and today ours waits for us to honor it." As dawn broke, the cries of baby Awa startled them awake. Her skin felt warm and her breathing shallow. Panic flashed in Musa's eyes as he held her close, whispering prayers under his breath. Ibrahim touched her forehead and frowned. "She has a fever. We cannot wait. We must take her to the hospital." Fear gripped Musa's chest. "Hospitals? They ask for money. I have nothing." Ibrahim's voice was steady, unyielding. "I will handle it. No child of my brother will be left to suffer while I breathe." He wrapped his scarf around the baby and led the way, determination blazing in his stride. The hospital was crowded, filled with the wails of children and the weary sighs of mothers. Ibrahim moved quickly, demanding attention for Awa, but bureaucracy slowed them at every turn. "Identification? Payment?" the nurse at the desk asked, with detached coldness. Musa shrank in shame, clutching his daughter as though she might vanish. Ibrahim's temper flared. "This child needs help, not paperwork. I will pay whatever it takes, but you will not let her suffer." His voice carried authority, and soon a doctor appeared, taking the baby into his arms. Musa's knees weakened with relief, but guilt gnawed at him. His pride had brought him to the streets, but now his brother's voice and money carried his child to safety. The hours dragged like years as they sat outside the treatment room. Musa paced restlessly, biting his nails, muttering prayers. Ibrahim sat still, but his eyes betrayed his storm. He had seen the face of war, yet the sight of one fragile baby fighting for breath shook him more deeply than any battlefield. Finally, the doctor returned, his expression serious but calm. The child was malnourished and dehydrated. The fever was dangerous, but she is strong. With care, she will recover. Relief washed over Musa like rain after a drought. He fell to his knees, thanking God, tears soaking his face. Ibrahim lifted him gently, whispering, "We will not let her face hunger again." That night, as Awa lay sleeping in the hospital bed, Musa turned to Ibrahim, his eyes haunted. "Why do you help me? I have nothing left to give. I am a broken man. You will only waste your time on me." Ibrahim's gaze was unwavering. "You are not broken. You are my brother, and brothers are not measured by what they can give, but by who they are. You once lifted me when I had nothing. Do not think I have forgotten." Musa's lips quivered. For the first time, he began to believe that maybe he was not beyond saving. Word of Ibrahim's kindness began to spread. Some praised him as a man of the people. Others whispered criticism. "Why waste resources on a beggar?" they sneered. "A leader should not lower himself." Ibrahim heard the whispers, but his resolve did not waver. For him, humanity outweighed politics. Musa, however, felt the sting. "They mock you because of me," he said bitterly. "I am dragging your name down." Ibrahim's hand clamped on his shoulder. "Let them talk. They know my name, but they do not know my heart, and my heart will never abandon you." In the days that followed, Ibrahim attempted to get Musa identification documents so he could work legally, but every office was another wall. Lost papers? Too late. No records. Come back later. Each rejection chipped away at Musa's fragile hope. He began to wonder if society itself had already decided his fate, but Ibrahim refused to accept defeat. He stormed through offices, met with officials, demanded justice. "This man has a right to exist in his own country," he declared. Slowly, doors began to open, not because the system cared, but because Ibrahim's persistence left no choice. Musa watched in awe, humbled by a brother who fought battles on his behalf. Finally, with a temporary identification in hand, Musa stared at the paper as though it were a treasure. His fingers shook as he traced the letters of his own name. "I exist again," he whispered, eyes brimming with tears. Ibrahim smiled, clapping him on the back. "This is only the beginning. Tomorrow, we look for work. Tomorrow, we rebuild." For the first time in years, Musa lifted his chin, daring to imagine a life beyond the streets. Awa stirred in her sleep, her tiny hand curling around Musa's finger. That small gesture was enough to remind him that tomorrow was worth fighting for. Years had passed since that fateful day when Ibrahim first found Musa begging with baby Awa in his arms. The streets that once bore his shame now held his triumph. Musa stood proudly at the entrance of his own shop, its shelves filled, its doors welcoming neighbors, travelers, and friends alike. Above the counter, a small framed photo of Awa's late mother reminded him of how far he had come. Awa, now a bright young girl, skipped around the shop, her laughter filling the air. She carried notebooks under her arm, eager to study after school. "Baba," she called, "one day I'll make this shop even bigger, you'll see." Musa smiled, tears in his eyes, knowing his sacrifices had borne fruit. Ibrahim visited often, not as a savior but as a brother. Together they would sit outside the shop, drinking tea as the sun set, reflecting on the road they had walked. Musa no longer felt like a beggar saved by pity. He was a man restored, a father fulfilled, and a friend who had rediscovered dignity. As the marketplace buzzed around them, Musa whispered to Ibrahim, "Had you not stopped that day, my story would have ended in the dust. But you reminded me of who I was, and for that, I will forever be grateful." Ibrahim clasped his hand firmly. "We walk this path together, Musa, and may others learn that no man is too far gone to rise again." And so the story of despair turned into one of hope, proving that kindness, persistence, and brotherhood can rebuild even the most broken lives. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to share the message of hope with others.